Wonderful. All right, so we're at 7:31, so we'll get started. So welcome to this second section of the Money Matters course series, which is really designed to help congregations think through all the different elements around creating a compelling vision, building teams, and doing fundraising for ministry and mission in our time. So we welcome you to this part of the course. Today, we're very lucky to have the Reverend Jaya So with us to lead the next 4 courses. So Jaya actually has been a partner of the PCC for a number of years. She's been involved in the cyclical PCC program, so she serves there as a coach. She's been an assessor. She recently was at an assessment event leading that. So she has lots of experience with the PCC. She herself founded a new worshiping community a few years ago with her husband, and has done an amazing job at developing a ministry team and doing fundraising. And so we're very grateful to have her here and to learn from her experience today and over the next 4 weeks. So welcome, Jaya. And just a reminder to everyone, this is really an hour for you. This is an hour where you will be given tools, you will be learning new things, which will help you in your ministry. So I really invite you to take this time for yourself. So it's always tempting when we're on computer to see that there's an email alert to check those. And I would just really invite you to come into this space and come into this time and to really see this as a gift for you and for your ministry, and to put all those things aside and to focus in. So after saying that, I welcome Jaya, and take it away.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you, everyone, for inviting me to be in this space. I'm really excited to be with all of you in Zoom. And I think technology is an amazing thing that allows us to do that, even in the midst of technology probably being one of the most frustrating things about modern living at times. I am one of the pastors of a small new worshiping community called Anchor and Hope. We're in San Diego. I'm going to put up a picture of that in a second. And I have the privilege of sharing with all of you what teams, the importance of teams, particularly in sustainability. And I know that most of us are here, and I'll mention this again, are here because we're concerned about our finances, and that's, or we have some interest in this. And so I want to talk about teams in that way, but I also want to talk about teams in the sense of sustainability overall. And so that's what I'll be doing. But before I do that, I'll make it my book recommendation, which is I'm currently reading this book called Between the Listening and the Telling: How Stories Can Save Us by Mark Yaconelli. It is an excellent book about how we can share stories, and how that storytelling and story listening can be medicine for our souls, as I'm sure many of us have experienced. And I mention it because we're finding that it's part of our fundraising is in being able to tell our stories well, and to hear other people's stories as well. And so I just want to mention that book. It's been really wonderful. And so I know that we've got in the chat some where people are from, and I would just love to see too, like if you wouldn't mind raising your hands, and I have you all on 2 screens, and so I'll just be toggling a little bit back and forth. If you are a pastor of a church, either a new worshiping community or an established congregation, or you're doing some kind of ministry, if you just raise your hand real quick and I can just see. Great, thank you. Right, great. And then if you are like an elder or on session, would you just go ahead and let me know if that's what you do? Wonderful, thank you. And then if you're here as another type of leader, maybe a deacon, or maybe you're not in an ordained position, but you're a leader who's involved somehow in your church, would you let me know? Or if you're just here because you heard that there's this really amazing speaker and you just want to be here. Great, wonderful, thank you. I am looking forward to hearing a little bit more about you. And what I want to invite you to do is to put in the chat, if you maybe if you'd like, maybe some questions or concerns that brought you to this meeting today. And I can't promise that we'll get to all of them, but I would just like to see, like, what are the things that are on your mind as we go through our time today. The other week, I came upon this really charming children's book called We Are Together. And so I just want to set our tone by reading a couple of the pages from there as we begin. And so let's see, there we go. We Are Together. And this is by Britta Teckentrup. On our own, we're special and we can chase our dream. But when we join up hand in hand, together we're a team. Hear the song we sing to encourage and inspire. If we all sing together, one voice becomes a choir. Walking all together on paths as yet unknown may lead us to places that feel just like home. We're off to climb mountains all the way to the top. Our friends keep us going. They won't let us stop. When life is confusing and our way seems unclear, the horizon is distant, but our friends will stay near. So hopefully this gives us a sense of why we're gathered today. Is just to get the sense of being together. I heard that this book actually kind of took off after the pandemic because everyone felt alone. This was written in 2018, but we're seeing it more and more in children's books, and so because people were afraid, and so of just the aloneness, right, that we felt while we were kind of sequestered in our own homes. And so team and the connection really became more and more important. And I just really love this book. And to me personally, it spoke to me as well. So to share a little bit about myself, as I mentioned, I co-pastor a 9-year-old new worshiping community. And I put new sometimes in quotes because people will often ask me, when do you stop being new if you're 9 years old? But our church is called Anchor and Hope. This is a little picture of 2 of our youth group members, and we meet at an elementary school here in San Diego, California. And we're what we call a third culture community. So that is, we are mostly Asian American, and we are mostly comprised of people who have not grown up in their parents' home cultures. And so that's just a little bit of a snapshot so that you get a picture of who I am and where I'm coming from. And yes, I am from the States, and I thank you for allowing me to be here. I know that I will pronounce things differently and say things weird. Like I remember once I was with some Canadian colleagues and I said Z instead of Z, and they're like, what is that? And I said, oh, it's the last letter in the alphabet. So I thank you for your grace in just having me be here. I am trying to stop the share and I cannot get my mouse to work. Okay, let me see if I can do that. Yes. Okay, there we go. But yes, according to our denomination, I'm Presbyterian Church USA. We're still new because we haven't become a fully chartered congregation, but to some people, 9 years feels like we've been around for a long time, and that is true. But there have been congregations, probably maybe one of yours, that have been around for decades or even centuries longer than we have. And so that's our church. We've gone through lots of ups and downs, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about that today. In addition to pastoring, as Jen mentioned, I work bivocationally, really multi-vocationally for several different leadership organizations, including the privilege of working with you all, with the PCC, and particularly within the Cyclical Network. We are a small church. We're probably about 40 adult members at this point and about 20 children. Our story starts about 10 years ago when I was working for another established congregation, and I was pretty dissatisfied with the ministry that we were doing. If any of you are familiar with StrengthsFinders, positivity is like in my top 5. And even if you're not familiar with StrengthsFinders, you'll probably get a guess of what positivity might do for a person that's part of their strengths. But every Sunday I was driving home with my husband and our daughter in the back, and I'm trying to be quiet because I don't want to complain too much, but I'm just complaining every Sunday about how dissatisfied I am with church. And I realized like I couldn't do that because it was doing something to my soul. And so we began to switch the question around to what if, like, what do we love about church, and what could we do that was different, and what could we dream about church being? And as we did, my husband and I began to feel this gnawing at our hearts of were we being called to start a church? And the answer initially to that was surely not us, because we are not like these like go-getter types of people, right? We're not like super extroverted. We're not super entrepreneurial. I don't think that when people first met us that they would have thought that we were church planters. In fact, when my husband and I first met in seminary, one of the ways that we bonded was we had agreed that neither of us were interested in being ordained as pastors or doing congregational ministry. And here we are 23 years later, having done that for most of our ministry careers and really loving it. And so when we first started to think that maybe this was what God was calling us to, we began to put out the fleece, as it were, and to see if this was really what God wanted us to do, and to test God, really, right? Because we just weren't certain. And so we began to think that if we were going to do this, we couldn't do this on our own. And we needed people to come alongside us to do this. Of course, this seems obvious because you can't do a new worshiping community without people together. But what we really meant was we needed people who would be able to help us plant this church. And so when I mentioned putting out the fleece, what I mean is I remember praying to God about 6 people in particular that I knew had different kinds of gifts and had a heart for some of the things that we've been talking about. And I prayed to God and I said, God, we're going to ask these 6 people. And if a single one of them says no, then we're not going to do it. Like, this is the big test, right? God, like, you're going to tell us, you're going to move in these people's hearts. If a single one says no, then we're just going to take this as a sign that you're not asking us to do this. And so then we approached these 6 people and we were like, we've got this wild idea of planting a new worshiping community. We're asking you if you'd like to come alongside with us to do it. And we're going to let you know up front that it's going to require some things from you, part of which is you're going to have to start giving up, like, you know, you're going to have to be part of the people who financially sustain this. And then we said, we'll give you a super long on-ramp. It was November, the beginning of Advent, when we approached them. And I said, we'll give you until Easter of next year. So pray over the next couple of months and then come back to us and just let us know. And I thought with this long on-ramp that we would be giving them a gracious way to say no to us. And then, of course, we wouldn't have to plant this church, because I was convinced that we were not the right people to do this, right? Because we had been told that there was a certain type of person and we just didn't fit that mold. So we asked these people to pray. And we say, okay, we'll give you until Easter. And the very next week, independent of one another, they came back to us and said, we're in and we'll give and let's do this. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is it. That was the start of it all. And that's when we realized that we had a team that would bring us all together, that we weren't planting just my husband and myself alone, right? But that there were another 6 people that were going to do this. And one of the things that we were very intentional about was of these 6, several were couples, were children. And so we included them in our team as well. And we wrote a little book about for our children about what it meant to plant a team and plant a church and how they were part of the team. And that's how we really got started. And it really told us that God knew more than we did, that it would take more than the 2 of us to plant this church. And it's been super apparent through the ups and downs of our ministry that our team is the greatest asset we have for the sustainability of our church. There are several times in the life of our church where we were super uncertain of our church's future. Once, because of the church's finances, our executive presbyter at the time, who was very supportive of us, he called us to his office one day and was like, and sat us down and said, look, I'm super proud of you all. You're doing such good ministry and so creative and wonderful. And then he's, it's kind of that like compliment sandwich. And then he said, but I just want you to know that your finances are really in a bad state right now and that you have about 18 months of survival. And then that's it, right? But good job, guys. And he meant it all very sincerely. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? I took it back to this team and I said, this is what's going to happen. This is where we're at. And the team was the one who said, we'll give more, right? Because I said, I'm willing to take, do whatever sacrifices. And they said, we'll give more. And let's ask others in the church, like, please make sure that you're telling everyone in our small community that this is the state of our finances. Like, don't keep it to yourself. Don't burden yourself with this. And so we did, and our church rallied, and financially in the giving terms, we came into this very healthy space. The other time was, as we've all been through this time of pandemic, and there was a time of incredible, like we had to have this outburst of creativity. We just sensed that the pandemic was doing a number on everyone. And my husband and I, as a pastors, decided that we would release our leaders from meeting, right? Our leadership meetings, because we were just meeting online at the time, and mostly from their responsibilities. And so they were helping to carry out the tasks of the church, right? Leading worship, or setting up or cleaning up, or preparing food once we came back together, all of that. But the decision-making and the direction of the future of the church fell on us. And because we felt a perceived lack of support, because everyone was just so tired and burnt out, it really felt like maybe this new worshiping community of ours might not continue on. And so it was when we reassembled a team of leaders who felt the responsibility of the church together with us, who assured us that they believe in the continuity of this ministry as much as we did. We felt that our new worshiping community could sustain. And so really, without a team of good leaders, the sustainability of the church, whether financial or otherwise, would not have happened. And so we often talk about bringing together this team of load-bearing leaders. That's what my friend Ann Steigerwald refers to. Leaders who aren't just people who carry out tasks, right? Because often in churches, we have tasks that need to be carried out, and we need leaders to do that, right? But load-bearing leaders aren't people who just carry out tasks. They aren't just the volunteers or support leaders, but they're the people who join the work in discerning the future of the community. And every church needs load-bearing leaders. This could be your session or deacons, but there are other people too who are able to be load-bearing leaders, and we'll talk about that in a second. Now, I know that I mentioned this before, that many of us are here because we have some type of interest and maybe even some deep concern for the financial sustainability of your ministries. And so I think it's important to say that it's my belief that good financial sustainability stems not from having a good plan, or not from having, a bunch of grants or good donors or a good business solution. Those things might all be a part of what we need for sustainability. But all sustainability comes from the good health of the leaders of the group. And so more than anything else, I believe that a good team is vital for the sustainability of our ministries. I came across this quote from Malcolm X as I was preparing for our time today. He said, "When I is replaced by we, even illness becomes wellness." As Presbyterians,
we're not seeing your slides. Are you showing us slides?
No, there's no slides right now. Yeah,
perfect.
I'm going to pop
wanted
back onto the
double-check.
slides in a second. Thanks.
Perfect.
Thanks for
Sorry
checking,
about that.
Jen. Yeah. I'll have more slides later so that you won't just have to look at more slides later today, but also more slides in my next presentation, so you won't have to just sit at my face. But today I just want to do some intro stuff and get the conversation going. Let's see. So, as Presbyterians, I think this seems pretty obvious. We are, after all, a connectional, collaborational denomination, right? We work with teams of leaders, our elders and deacons, right? Our elders and deacons are there to help us to lead and sustain and grow our ministries. And it's with these types of leaders and other types of leaders, as I mentioned, that our teams come together. And so part of our task as the primary leaders of our communities, of our churches, is to recognize and empower these load-bearing leaders to be able to contribute to the sustainability of our ministry. And so I just want to note that we do have our elders and deacons, but there might be people of influence in our communities that could be a load-bearing leader as well. I refer to that sometimes as soft power, right? Like people that have influence. They're connected. They have ideas, but they don't want to be part of the official structure of the church. I think about someone in our ministry who told me at the very beginning, "I will do whatever you ask me to do. Just don't ask me to attend any meetings," right? And I had to honor that. And so I remember that he would do so many different things that, we did ask him to do. But what really made him vital to the church was the way that he was able to gather people together. People came around him. He really cared for them. And he was one of those influential leaders who didn't have a title. And so what I really want to invite you to do is to start thinking about, beyond your session and your deacons, and see who else might be a part of the team that is contributing to the sustainability of your ministries, right? And to start thinking creatively about that. For the rest of our time today, though, I want to spend some time to really dig into the sustainability of the leaders. So in our next meetings, we'll take some time to assess the team for our ministries and to think about like how they might be helping us financially. But today, what I want to do is talk about team you, right? Team the leader, right? As elders, as people in who are pastors, who might be deacons, who are somehow leaders in your churches and in your communities. So Team You is who I want to talk about today to talk about sustainability. As I mentioned, I'm a bivocational pastor, and I can only really be bivocational because of the team around me. Some of them are directly part of the ministry and others are not. Part of the work, as Jen mentioned, that I get to do is church planting assessments. It's a really fun part of my job because I love meeting people who are thinking about doing innovative things, but also I get to tell people what they're good at, right? So everyone comes to these assessments and they're so worried because they're afraid that people, that we're going to be telling them, oh my gosh, you're doing this horribly and you're doing this wrong and you're not fit for this work. But really the type of system and the type of assessment that we do is more geared towards, yes, are you a fit for this ministry, but also what are your gifts and talents and what are your strengths and what are the things that you're doing well, and to recognize that's where are those gaps, right? But one of the things that we do that's most important during this time is to talk about a person's social base, right? And the way that we refer to social base is social base is your team. That is the leader's team. So it's all of the players who support you and your work, even if they're not directly involved in your ministry. They're the people who remind you that you're not what you do, right? You're not your successes or failures. They're the people who remind you that you are loved, right? And that you have the strength and ability to be able to do these things. So I want to invite us to do a little exercise based on an exercise that we have our planters to do to talk about like our social bases or our Team You. And so it's been a little bit adapted for this, but I just want to start and share here. What I want to invite you to do is, if you have, like, you might want to get a piece of paper and a pen for this, or something that you can write if you don't have one, or maybe you just want to think about this. But if you have it, that's good, right? And what I want you to do is just draw these circles, right? Because that's what we're going to be talking about as we think about Team You. So just 4 circles, right, to talk about our social base. So I'll give you some time to do that. Don't worry too much about the writing. That's going to be in there in a second as I explain. So just draw those 4 circles. All right. So that first circle is you, right? It is you yourself as part of Team You. You're you, right? And so you can write your name there if you'd like, right under you, right? Just write your name. And think about what you need in order to have good health, in order to be a good member of your own team, right? This might be a time to reflect on your spiritual practices, your self-care practices, the ways in which that you're able to take Sabbath or vacation time, the time that you take to do the things that you really love and enjoy. Just write those things down, and then maybe take some time to assess on a scale of 1 to 5 how healthy you feel like you, as part of your own team, you're feeling right in this day, in this moment, right? 1 being kind of, I feel tired and run down and weary, and 5 being like, I feel great and I feel ready, and I feel like I'm in a place of wholeness and health, right? So that's circle 1. Team, as part of Team You is you, right? And how you're doing. The second part is, oh, good. Look at that. I actually wrote those 3 things there. Okay. So I'll give you just another 30 seconds or so. Okay. All right. The second part is what we call the intimate circle. And this represents the team member, like the people, that's the members of your team closest to you, right? Perhaps those who live under your roof or those with whom you can be the most vulnerable. You want to write the names in this circle, right? How is your ministry, right, affecting these relationships, right? What are the benefits and challenges, right? How have you invited the people in this circle to support you in your ministry? Right? Who are those who are available to you in a crisis, right? Maybe they're directly involved, maybe they're not. But what are the benefits and challenges of having these people in your ministry? Right? Who are those that are really there for you, right? And they can be part, like I said, of your ministry or not. Right? And then are there others that you need to invite into this space? So that's the most intimate circle. Now, the third circle is what we call the social circle, right? And those are the people that resource you, mentors, counselors, coaches, colleagues, and people who provide you with emotional and practical support. Maybe they're the friends or neighbors that aren't so close to you and they're not super vulnerable to them, but they are the people who, like, maybe you might reach out to for some friendship time, or if you need some resources, right? So write down some specific names and roles in this circle, right? And then take some time to think about the titles of people that you might need, right? Write down the title of missing people. Some reflections might be, who do you go for play and recreation, right? Are there people here who are outside of your ministry but are here in this circle, right? So think about that, right? So that's the social circle. And I want to invite you in this to just be strategic and generous with yourself, and think about all the people that you might be needing who will resource you, who are less than the vulnerable, like the people with whom you can be the most intimate or vulnerable with. But the people that you can have fun with, or the people who can listen to you, the people who might be sounding boards for you. So that's the social circle. Now, the final circle is the public circle, and this next circle represents our public life. These are your community groups, your other vocations or work, right? It might be the institutions that you're a part of, so the denomination or other institutions. This might include looking at some of the hats that you wear: pastor, committee member, PTA parent, community volunteer, etc. Right? And so that's kind of like, who's in this public circle, right? Think about the different names and locations that represent this circle and how you might answer the question, what do you do for a living in these different spaces? Right? And one of the reasons why we mention that is in all four of these, well, in three of these circles, and even in the fourth circle, which is yourself, right? How we tell the story of our ministry and how we invite people in to be a part of the sustainability of our ministry might be different. And so we want to think about these different spheres of our life, of our team, right? Team You, and how we are inviting each people in this space to contribute to our own personal sustainability and perhaps to the sustainability of our ministries, right? And so it's these four circles. I can't quite see if we need a little bit more time with this, but what I do want to do is break us out for about 15, 20 minutes to talk about these circles. So for us, I'm going to stop here for a second, stop the share, and just see, has everyone had a chance to work on these circles a little bit? Do you need some more time, maybe? All right. So then what I would like to do, go ahead, Jen. Were you about to?
I'm going to set up the groups of 5. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great. And we have I'm going to put some questions in the chat so that will carry over to you. So what I want to invite you to do is just spend some time to reflect on Team You in breakouts. What was it like to reflect on your team, right? Where do you feel confident? Where are the gaps? What about boundaries? What do boundaries look like? How do you practice them? How are there places, and this is another one, where are you too boundary, where you feel like you might be missing the opportunity to invite people in, right? Sometimes we don't, like for me personally, I feel like, oh, I don't want to burden this person too much. So I'm not going to ask them to help me. I'm not going to ask them to contribute to these things. And so sometimes we just miss out on that. And so maybe that's something that you want to ask is, how are you too boundary, right? How might you invite people in each of these circles, right, to contribute to the sustainability as a leader and or the sustainability of your ministry? And so we'd love to spend some time just reflecting on that. And we'd like to give you a good amount of time to be able to do that. So Jen, how does about 15 to 20 minutes sound? Does that sound too long, or does that sound okay?
15 minutes sounds great. Perfect.
Okay, so let's do that. Yeah, and then we'll come back together and just discuss.
All right. You should all see an invitation very soon.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks particularly to the folks who are in the breakout room just that I was in. Thanks for sharing about what your current situations are like, what your concerns are. I definitely hear that. I'm guessing that for many of us, those concerns are pretty similar. I mean, I spent most of the time today talking about the sustainability of ourselves, which is really going to be key and important for the sustainability of our ministries. But yet on top of mind is really the sustainability of our ministries. And so I get that. But what I really hope that we'll be coming away from with this is the remembrance that, you know, each of us here in this Zoom space, you are beloved, right? You're loved. God loves you. God cares for you, right? More than, sometimes I say more than the project or ministry, right? I hesitate to say that sometimes just because, but I just want you all to know that you're loved. And so that we have to kind of focus from there, because if we are coming from a space of anxiety, right, then it makes us afraid to be able to take risks. It makes us afraid to be able to really participate in God's work. And so that's why really the emphasis as we talk about teams and financial sustainability, I really want to start with Team You. And so as we leave, I wanted to invite you, and before I kick it back over to Jen to finish us, I'd like to invite you to continue to reflect on your team and the ways in which your team at all circles are interacting with you, and to see especially those gaps, right? Like, where are the gaps that need to be filled and where you can invite people into appropriate participation. And in our next meeting, I'll talk more about team specifically for our finances, but hopefully you're leaving today feeling like that sense of Team You, right, is starting to get filled out. So thank you. Yeah, thanks, Jen. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dea, for what a great reminder. You know, just echoing other people, you know, when we're in ministry, we just want to rush into action and like do the work of gathering the team and getting everything ready. And I think what you offer is an important corrective and a reminder that we're in that team and how we are matters in that. And I think that we're empowered to be healthier leaders when we take that time to think about Team You. So thank you for that reminder. And just letting everyone know, this video recording of this webinar will be made available, so you'll all receive a copy along with some of the slides. And so these are resources that you can share with your sessions and with other members of your congregation to further that learning. So we look forward to seeing you here next week, same time, same place on Zoom. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.